I was looking for it to say that. Okay. Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you all. I'm so excited for today's episode of Spirit Sessions, um, Season 3, Episode 12. But first of all, to each and every one of you on Facebook and on YouTube showing up, namaste to you. See, this passes no germs and passes all the love. My hands do not touch any of you. Namaste. See? Feel that love and energy so we can still greet everyone. We don't need the fist bumps or the elbows. We got namaste with us, don't we? So welcome in. I want if you're on YouTube or you can go to YouTube to watch us. So subscribe and click the like button for us. And if you're on Facebook and everywhere, share it out. We got Karath here with us from South Africa, and so we're so excited. He was a guest a couple of weeks ago. And blessings to all of you. Do you feel the emergence of the new world that we are on the brink of? I am so excited for these energies, and I'm so glad to be here with each and every one of you, and with Rhonda Elliott, and with Bex Marie, my co-host, and they each have, if you look in the where Rhonda puts it, um, you could see all of the where you can get a hold of us all, and so we look forward to hearing from you. And so, Kiara's saying she can't see me. Have I
I can
ghosted
hear
today?
her, but I can't see
Yeah, I'm not seeing
you.
you on the screen either. I mean, I can see you on our screen, but not on the
You might
live.
Okay.
have to
Well,
reload.
I'm
I'm
okay
gonna
with
double
that
check.
myself.
Are
And
we having
so
a
we have
yeah.
an amazing guest that I'm so excited to bring with us. But stay through to the end because Mott and Toth are bringing us an amazing activation at the end of this interview. And so, Rhonda, will you take it away and I will close out and come back in or something?
I see your name.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I moved it back, it seems that you pop back up. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
You may I think you just had a little internet blink, but
Okay, so I'm
not
back.
since we're all socially isolating, we're all on the internet. So I guess sometimes our cameras are going out, but we'll get back on, no problem. I see you, Saul Res. Well, I'm so excited to have Jim Perry here with us again this year. He was so gracious in coming back. I wait with bated breath for his Euphomet to come back on, and it hasn't disappointed. If you haven't had the pleasure of listening to his podcast, it's a binge worthy at this time of year. Just go into whatever your favorite podcast people are, Spotify or Apple, wherever you like to go in and look up Euphomet. You'll find, is both seasons on, Jim? But
Yeah.
like Obscura and Euphomet season 2 is online, and you can go to his Patreon. All his details are in this video. You can go find him. He's got such great stories.
Oh, yeah.
He says them from the heart, and he's involved, and he has such an empathetic way with his interviewees, and he gets right into the story and sometimes visits right the story, so you're there. And
Yes, yes.
and his latest one that I just finished listening to was at Skinwalker Ranch, a place most of us have heard about, and it's a filled place. You visit the creepiest places with your guests on the planet. And were you at the hotel as well up in? Is that in Colorado? The one where Stephen Skin?
The Stanley Hotel.
The Stanley. Did
Yeah.
you go there?
Yeah, absolutely. I spent 2 nights there. Participated in the Estes Method Spirit Box session
right.
with
Oh,
Carl and
yeah.
Connor in my room. At one point in time, it was about 2 a.m. We had done this session that has lasted for hours with all sorts of communication, seemingly, my name being dropped, Carl's name being dropped, and then realizing at some point, I'm going to have to go to sleep in this same room after they leave. They're not here all night. So that was one of the freakiest points of that night. But yeah, Stanley, wow. It is one many of these locations that I find myself at that are kind of like the who's who or the where's where of sort of paranormal or spiritually active locations in the world. So I feel very lucky that I've come out the other side. I don't have anything following me, I don't think, or anything weird like that. I just feel really happy and blessed to come out the other side and have stories and help share the stories of those that have really experienced things from these locations.
Now, would you say in all your experiences now, at first you were uh, quite distanced, but now do you feel like you're more of a believer? More like you believe in what you see? There's more spirit going on?
It's a great question. It's one that I ponder all the time. I have liked to say I've liked to say, I don't know what I believe in, and even that is sort of in question, right? Um, you do experience so much activity while doing this that it does change your perspective on your relationship to the unknown. It does change your perspective a little bit on the nature of reality, perhaps. What is the consensus reality that we all live in when it's like sort of tested, where its boundaries feel more flexible, and that you are essentially like sort of staring into the abyss at times and wondering, well, if this is true, then why is this over here not true? In them, experiences do tend to lean into one another. Once you experience one thing that is like sort of unworldly or otherworldly, you seem to kind of break into this state of, I don't know, Robert Anton Wilson describes it as chapel perilous, right? It's this spot where you find yourself in, and you have to sort of make a choice whether you're becoming a participant in it or you're completely walking away from it. Um, and I have had to become a participant in it in some degree, while also trying to keep some sort of journalistic integrity within myself and
Yes.
truly communicate these stories for the listener as if I am the listener myself. And the listener themselves probably are battling with a lot of these same questions about belief and about what their role in all this could really be. And so I try to really, despite whatever is going on with me, to really honor that within the work, I think. So I don't think I really answered your question there, but I think that's my that's my perspective on it
Well,
right now.
I understand where you're coming from, because even, I have a very skeptical core of me, and sometimes I don't even believe what I can do. So, we all have that doubt. And what you've witnessed so much, that at least I think now, it sounds like from the progression that I've heard, that there's something, right? There's something that's out there that's unknown, and it's not all in our imaginations. There's something else. When we knock, something else is listening to that knock, more or less. Like that's the way I've found that your progression has gone from like this professional skepticism, like you've been back to more like, yeah, but I kind of believe what you're saying, but I'm making sure there's nothing there that's leading me astray. Sort of like you're kind of clarifying it for all the skeptics out there too. Like, I've checked this out.
Yeah, it's interesting because I would never want to classify myself as an expert, really, in any of this, or even an authority, right? So in that way, I really just try to focus in on the story of these folks and really believe in them. Outside of the phenomenon itself, believe in them and believe that their interaction has had an impact on them, and that matters, right? That interaction that occurs between the phenomenon and the experiencer really does matter, and that's what I believe in, I think. Now, I can see, ghostly visages, UFOs, hear voices, all these different, sort of abstract, I don't know, levels of communication with something else, like myself. But what's really important to me, yeah, is just containing the narrative of why these things are important, whether they're true per consensus reality or not, or whether it's just something we may never understand it all.
Yeah, you seem to be interviewing people like that you believe in. Like, so you're not, there are people out there that are hucksters and whatever, right? So, but these people are very sincere in what they believe in. So no matter what, they believe what they believe. It is true for them. And I'm sure they still have questions in their minds like everybody else would, like, what's going on, so we are having a little problem with your feed, so I don't know if it's just your internet's going up and down, people were saying. So, but what has been your most chill moment? Well, besides the Stanley Hotel, you were talking about Skinwalker Ranch, and when your guest was talking about being chased by the UFO, that kept kind of going, like looked like cop lights, and then kind of transformed as if it was using his own mind to trick him as to what he was seeing. That was like, oh man, like that was really creepy. I don't know. That was a chill moment for me.
Yeah, the implications of that, right? I mean, the idea that it's a communication, or it's a conversation rather, and that the phenomenon can be reflective per what you have internally, what you're thinking, what you're manifesting, right? And to have someone experience that in real time, as to where it sort of plays a trick with his own judgment of himself. And hey, is it wrong that I'm kind of like even thinking about this because it's manifesting in this way? And I think kind of taking a few steps back, like what a lesson that could be for someone like that in that moment of time. If this is a conversation, it's really teaching you the importance of, hey, what's your intent? Like, what kind of fear or narrative are you projecting onto the phenomenon? And it's seemingly more than happy to accept that invitation and then play right along with it. It's like improv comedy, right? Like improv, there's that like golden rule, yes and. And to take that even further, yes and what if?
Yeah.
And that tends to be kind of the discourse in this, ultra terrestrial like behavior of these lights that Ryan was seeing there at Skinwalker.
If you had a place that you could go next, where would your ideal place be? Where would you like to visit? Like, where is your ideal place to visit next on your bucket list?
Yeah, I think just I've never chronicled stories or spoke with locals in these distant locations from the United States. And so that would be next for me. And that's something I'm working on right now. Unfortunately, due to the current circumstances, I touched my face. Oh my God. Due to the current circumstances, of course, like it's all sort of been paused at this moment in time. But my hope is to go to places like Singapore, for example, the Philippines. I have some notions of going into the Scottish Highlands and there's just so many locations around the world that, because of the support of my listeners, I'm now able to devote an amount of budget or whatever that comes through for the show to go international. And that to me is super exciting because I feel like I have an opportunity to
I keep playing it.
Am I cutting out there?
Yeah, cutting out a little bit. Yeah. I don't know if it's your high point mic or what's going on. Maybe.
You go digital. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Bex, you had a question for our guest too.
How did you know? You didn't know that. So I was
I can tell your face after this.
Yeah, I get the face. So I was like, the way I was understanding it was, and I wanted to ask what you think about this, but if we haven't been taught to fear all of these things, our response would be different.
Yes.
So we would see them from a place of curiosity more than a place of reaction and fear and panic, and that must be bad, right? So how do you think that's really played an effect on how you approach these situations, because you have a respect for these situations that is so amazing, and the way that you handle them, the way that you come into them, is with a real understanding of the integrity that you hold for the sacredness of each space.
Mm. It's a great question. I mean, I think that in addition to fear, there's a lot of this phenomena, or at least the relationship to the phenomenon, that's based in trauma as well. And so it is a very touchy subject that requires a great sense of responsibility. So, how do you handle that? I think that I focus on the micro. I focus on what are the implications for this person as a human being. What are the elements of this phenomenon that tells us something about the human experience? In that way, I feel like that's where we can find understanding and not feel alone. And in that way, kind of demystify some of this to some degree as well.
I like that.
So, Jim, tell us who's coming up and tell us what it's like. Like, how did you even, a lot of our listeners didn't see last year. So, how did you even decide this is something that you wanted to do? Like, how did this ever just kind of, like, you do Defy Wrestling, right? Are you still part of that?
I am.
So,
Yep.
So you do the kind of the Defy Wrestling, which is the, and you do this paranormal podcast about in a deep way. And I was just wondering how that ever crossed your horizon.
Yeah. I got to a point in time in my life where I was working full time for an ad agency, and I've always had an interest in the paranormal. And more broadly, I grew up listening to Coast AM with Art Bell. As a kid with a hyperactive imagination, I couldn't quite always get the best of sleep when I was a kid. And so I would tune into his show and listen to it every night. And so I think, going to bed with him and Whitley Strieber talking about, communication with the others or whatever, I think that changed my psychology from a very young age in terms of what I was willing to accept and believe, or at least pay attention to and consider. So because of that, when I got to a point in my life where, I was making really good money and I was doing some really cool work, and all it did was really get me to a place where I believed in myself more in terms of what I could creatively do. But looking at the work I was doing, I wasn't satisfied with who I was really serving, what purpose I was really serving. I certainly wasn't doing anything. Let's just say this: it was a compromise, right? And because of that compromise, it wore me down until I began experiencing panic attacks and developed an anxiety disorder. And the amount of stress-related injury to like my psychosis was pretty substantial at that time. So I decided to, sort of make a change, and that's when I started doing Euphomet as a live talk radio show. And over, several, a couple years of doing it, I just, got to a point where I had some experiences myself, and I quit. I walked out the door of the ad agency and said, I want to do something completely different. And around that same time is when I was approached. I think that whenever I go big, I lose it.
I'm going to put you back. I can, there. I'll put you back. I'm going to put you back. Yeah, it's just too much. You just overload us. Yeah.
I know it. I know. Yeah. So it was at that time where I, was prepared for an opportunity to come my way to start traveling full time for Euphomet and doing the show like I've always wanted to as a documentary show. And so once I hit boots on the ground and started engaging with these personalities and these stories and these locations face to face is when my life completely changed at that point. And finally, walking out the door of that agency and quitting my old life finally made sense, like why I was doing that and why I needed to do that.
Right.
So with that though comes a great responsibility, right? With that
Yeah.
now I feel like I have to show up for that. I treat it just as seriously as of any other full-time job or career, if not more, because now what's at stake is not some ad campaign or social media campaign for a Fortune 100 company,
Right.
whatever. What's at stake now is like really holding space for people's stories and their experiences, and with that I create a great responsibility, and it's also a lot of fun though. I'm not going to weigh it down by saying that like it is this tremendous responsibility, but I mean, let's be honest, like I get to just like travel around to some of the most active locations or interesting locations, and meet some of the most fascinating people in the world. So it's one I wholly accept.
It's like
That's
from
awesome.
your heart, right? It's from your heart. So it's, when you can do something you love and do it from your heart, then it's really not a job anymore. It's a calling. And you've got this calling that I don't know if you realize how important it is that you're out there talking to other people. And when you talk to other people and bring their stories out into the open, it helps all of us that haven't been out in the open feel like, oh, there's somebody else out there.
Yeah.
And it helps people just know that they're A, not crazy, B, that this happens to other people, and there's a community out there. And when we listen to it, we get affirmed by that, all your stories. And I think it gives hope to everyone that there's something beyond this minuscule life. There's mystery and there's spirit and there's like another dimension out there that,
Yeah.
it's always here. People don't, it's always here, and it's really not to be feared, because I don't think you've met anybody who's actually been harmed by any of them. They might have been scared, but harmed physically, not.
Yeah, I don't think so. I can't remember of any of the episodes or features I've done where people have been, sort of physically harmed or mentally harmed. I mean, in fact, they're usually stories of the converse. They're usually stories of folks that have been transformed in a positive way by their interactions with the phenomenon, or that, at the end of the day, at least some sort of change has occurred based on something that has happened with the phenomenon. So yeah, not to say that folks aren't potentially injured by this sort of stuff in other areas. It's just not the story that I've covered. But yeah, you don't actually hear a lot of that anyway. The deeper and deeper you go into this, usually it's very human in the ways that people are injured by their interaction with the phenomenon, right? And I think that's to be noted, and yeah, I'm glad that the show at least like gives voice to folks that may be a little bit disfranchised in their own community, and within that, their voice and their stories are embraced by the folks that listen to the show, and then everyone feels less alone. And that's a tremendous hope of mine, is that through these stories, that at the least, if folks can feel sort of less alone in this and be like, oh yeah, no, that sounds like really similar to what I go through. That's awesome. That's great. That's a win.
It's very cool. Nancy Louise, one of our longtime listeners and watchers, was asking, what is the favorite event that's happened to you, Jim? Your favorite event. So what is your favorite event?
That's a great question. I don't think I haven't really thought of anything that's happened to me in terms of like what's my favorite before, just because it feels like an ongoing conversation or process, right? So I feel like what I've experienced has always been maybe like could be interpreted as a lesson, and here talking, I know I'm in a safe space where like they're not going to be judging me for going on a limb or expressing, even perhaps a spiritual connection to some of these experiences. But for those skeptic-minded folks that are listening or watching this right now, the experiences that I've had, no matter what the origin of them, even if there's some sort of subconscious manifestation trying to tell me something, the implications of that are still profound, because the lessons that I feel one can learn when they're appropriately sort of tapped in at that moment, or accepting what's happening right in front of their eyes or to them. That's where all the lessons are learned, right? So I think, I'm sorry, I'm not even answering this question. I think one of my favorite, and I think they want a story, is why.
Yeah.
So I'll tell this one. It was actually this is the actual story that got me to quit my job. All right. So I was doing Euphomet as a talk radio show, and for the show we decided to go to S3 Ranch.
Oh yeah.
Did I share this story the last time we chatted or anything? I don't think I did.
So,
I
Okay.
think so.
S3 Ranch is in the Columbia River Gorge. It's, you folks are probably familiar with it. James Gilliland is the ranch owner, and it's essentially an opportunity for anyone to go out and camp in the space, which experiences an incredibly high frequency of anomalous light activity. Experiences of people making contact, experiences of even cryptid activity, Sasquatch. And one of the features is this sky watch. You go out into this, out in the middle of this field of the ranch, look up, and essentially engage firsthand with this light activity. And we're standing there, and I went with my brother Kai and my uncle Lonnie and a friend, and we're standing there without expectation. We're trying to, oh yeah, we're here. This is great. Let's just chill out. Let's not try to expect too much. So we're standing out in this field, and people are already looking up and already starting to kind of have experiences. And James Gilliland floats out into the ranch as if some Buddha-like figure, and he just announces, "Well, I think there's actually going to be a mothership coming through here any time now." And he's got the laser pen, and he's shining it up into the. And then, sure enough, 2 seconds after he says that, this brilliant light, closer than anything that we've seen before, comes soaring over his house and over our head, and then off into the great beyond. This wasn't a drone. This wasn't a trick of the imagination. This wasn't some sort of military-grade device. This was James Gilliland announcing himself to the audience and confirming that he directly had a relationship with whatever was going on here, seemingly. So that was the first night. We were there for 2 or 3 nights, and that was one of those moments where it's like, well, if that was true, then what else is true?
yes.
So that unraveled a weekend where the next morning we were told of these Sasquatch sightings that had been occurring with high frequency there. And we went out to this grove. My uncle had this feeling like, hey, I just want to go check out this grove in the middle of the field. I don't know, something's compelling me to go explore it. So we go over there, and we find one of the most pristine Sasquatch looking tracks that anyone, it was so good that it was like something out of fiction, right? It was like a Hardy Boys meets Bigfoot novel or something. And it's just it's too perfect. Like a prop department made that. And needless to say, I think you folks can vouch. There's no problem at East Ranch. Deep spirit, you're trying to connect with something to go out and falsify evidence.
Right.
So we experience that and go, at this time our mind's blown, and we go sort of bohemian very quickly. You know what I mean? Both internally and externally, things started to happen to us. Things started to change as to where we were now accepting some piece of the cosmos seemingly within ourselves, and just open for anything. If this was the start, what else?
Yeah.
So we kind of go through the trip, and some other experiences sort of happen, and we kind of internalize them. And by the last night, we said, you know what, let's just split off. Let's go in our own direction. Let's just spend some time alone and with this space. And I decide to go out into the middle of the field. There's this like sort of magnetic atrium that's built in the
Right.
middle of the
Right.
field that's
I've seen that.
supposed to sort of harness some energy and is recommended to be a place where you meditate. Well, I hadn't really meditated since I was in college. You know, I was a theater kid, and it was mandatory at that point in time. So I hadn't really done it. Not that I was against it or even opposed to it, just didn't do it. So I go, this is a good time to start again. I'm going to sit down here. I'm going to meditate, and I'm going to look at this mountain. Now, the thing with ESETI, and one of its most amazing features, and I can't believe I didn't include it in the descriptor, is it is in the foothills of Mount Adams, which is a volcanic mountain, Cascade Mountain chain. It's actually one of the locations where Kenneth Arnold, for example, may have seen those first flying saucers, or the chevrons that were described as flying saucers later. So replete with every sort of paranormal activity, spiritual activity that you could think of. And one of the features of this mountain is that intermittent lights will pop up. So in addition to the lights in the sky, you're looking at the mountain at night, and there's these beacons that are popping up all over the mountain. And you go, well, that's just a headlamp or something. And then at the foothills, one of these headlamps are speeding past the mountain at speeds that can't be accomplished by anything man-made. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to spend some time with this mountain on this last night. And so I'm sitting there. The sun is setting. I'm focusing on my breathing. I'm breathing in, breathing out. I'm focusing on, my spine is burning, and I'm kind of just taking it all in, and with a very soft focus to that mountain. So sort of the silhouette of the mountain is like sort of always in my frame of vision, and has become sort of essentially like a totem. And I noticed that a light is starting to form on the mountain. Like, oh wow, okay, keep in it, keep focusing on your breath, like let it happen. And so I do that for a few minutes until I start to realize that light on the mountain is seemingly in tune with my breath.
Ooh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And I'm breathing in, and the light recedes, and I'm breathing out, and it's as if I'm breathing life into an ember. And it's, as I breathe, it grows stronger and stronger and stronger. And so I sat there with this mountain and did that for at least 20 minutes with me, this mountain, and this one light. And that was it. And that changed my life. Like, it was that moment in time. That's when I decided, like, hey, I need to go home and not do that work anymore. I need to devote myself to, like, doing projects that I just love. I need to do weird stuff, like make wrestling companies. And, what was funny about that is that it was eventually broken up by my uncle, who came over and gave me a nudge. And he goes, hey, man, you got a huge spider above your head right now.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So snapped out of it. And then, my Kabbalist friends would suggest that, hey, great meaning behind that spider that came to visit you at that point. So that was, I would say that was my favorite experience so far, was the experience that really kicked off this. It was really something going like, hey, man, we're trying to talk to you. Will you please listen now? And I will never forget that.
That's so cool. I think you need to visit the ESETI Ranch again. This time you can interview
Definitely.
Mr. Gillian.
Yeah.
I think that's a good one.
Yeah.
So when we were talking before the show, and we got a chance to meet with you beforehand, and talking about being in and out of the flow, and how you sort of feel now with all of this COVID crisis and everything that's going on in your life. You feel a little bit disconnected from the flow, or disconnected, and I think a lot of us are feeling that way. We're feeling like we're distracted from our breathing, or distracted from ourselves and from our spirit. So Teresa said she'd kindly bring in her Thoth meditation, and sort of whatever our intention is. Well, I'll let Teresa explain. Go ahead, Teresa. You explain it best.
Okay, we're doing the quickest version of this. It's normally about 15 to 20 minutes, and there's a lot involved because we're meeting with Mott and Toth. Toth is like one of the lords of the Akashic records and the halls of Amenti and all that. So, with this meditation, Toth is going to upgrade you in some way you want. One great thing for all of us to ask for and to set our intention for is to have that peace from the distraction so that we can let our light shine at this time as empaths and things when this whole world is worried and in fear. We're here to help transmute that energy as long as we ourselves are not distracted and stuff. So, whatever kind of upgrade you want, even if that's the one you need, focus on that right now for a few minutes while we take a couple of deep breaths. Inhale and exhale with a sigh. Because this slides us right into our heart space. Inhale again and exhale. And inhale one more time. Hold at the top so that we can expand even more. And then let it out. So use your imagination or your sense of feeling or knowing. However you sense this, imagine that right now you are out by a beautiful, natural, warm spring. There's mountains nearby. Could be in the desert because that's where I see mine. Mine's in the desert. But wherever yours is, imagine that you're stepping in to this little stream. There's a little pool right here, so it's kind of warm. Yet where the water streams through, it's a little cooler, so you get the sensation of the warm and the cool, and you're able to sit there and relax and go deep. These beautiful bubbling waters are fed by the nutrients from the soil and from the roots of the plants that are all nearby, and the stones that are there are helping you. So when your eyes closed and you're relaxing and you open your eyes again, I want you to notice that Mot, the goddess Mot of Egypt, is there, and she taps your shoulder just a little bit, and you lift up out of your body. As you lift up out of your body, you look back and see that guarding your body is two very strong, powerful pillars of light. And indeed, they are upgrading your DNA this whole time we're going on this trip. And so we walk with Maud, and we're walking with her, and we're going into an ethereal zone to where her beautiful temple is. And so with Mott, we walk up the steps, 1, 2, and 3, and now we're in her temple. And there's many rooms to the left and to the right, but we are going to go down the hallway and then keep going down and down into the next hallway, and now we are underneath the ground. We are in ancient Egypt, and we are further going until we're under the ground between the Great Sphinx and the middle pyramid. And here in that chamber, the Lord of the Akashic Records, Toth, comes out. And he is going to help us all upgrade right now with whatever intention you are setting. So Mott motions for us to lay down on this beautiful table. And as you relax onto this beautiful table, you repeat your intention for being calm, not distracted, or whatever other upgrade you are needing at this time in your life right now to help you shine bright. And so Toth is sitting there. He shakes his head yes, and he starts this machine, and immediately you feel your body elevate off of this table about 6 inches. And now from your crown to your feet are these electrical rings. They're not really electrical. I just don't know what else to call them. They're energetic rings that are going whoom, whoom, down your body. The rings. Feel these rings going down your body. Whoom, whoom, whoom. And as they're going, parts inside of you are lining up. Other parts of you are leaving now, and you may see things that are no longer serving you, doubts, fears, worries, blockages, they're radiating right off of you right now. They're shooting away, and the rest of you is coming into strong alignment. Whoom, whoom. And now it begins to get a wee bit intenser. Whoom, whoom, whoom. You're feeling these go over you. Feel these go over you. And you are now being activated until the intention that you asked for. Feel that intention being made complete within your spirit body here, within this beautiful light body that's going whoa, whoa, whoa. It's so intense, maybe you can't even see the circles anymore. They're just going so fast, you feel it. Whoa, 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 whoa. Raising your vibrations, bringing in what you asked for, shooting off any more remaining doubts and fears. And then it all begins to slow down again. Slowing down. Whoa, whoa, and you still feel those pulsing through your body. And then the machine is turned off and you float back down to the table and Mott lifts you up. You turn around and give gratitude to Toth for the activation that he brought to you today. And then we thank Mott for leading us, and she leads us back underneath the ground, all the way through all the hallways and back to her temple. We step down the steps again, 3, 2, 1, and she brings us back to in between those two pillars that we're upgrading our bodies. Now our bodies are a match to the activation that we just brought in. So slide back into your body there, sitting in that beautiful pool of warm water with the cool stream. Allow yourself to stretch your toes, roll your shoulders, click your fingers, roll your neck, and take one more deep breath to finally integrate back into your body. And now, open your eyes and feel the integration. If you received any messages or saw anything that you want to remember, write it down and see what this says later on. So,
Well, that was
welcome
pretty
back.
awesome.
That was very cool. Every
That
time
was
you
a
do go
quick version.
Thank you.
I get like the tingles in my head every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
What
it's
did,
pretty
what did you
neat.
think, Jim? You've never had this before, so we want to have your opinion.
Yeah. No, it was. I mean, it's beautiful meditations like that. I love and yeah, I think I got something out of that for sure. Yeah.
Very
Woohoo.
cool.
No, thank you.
Woohoo.
How about the rest of you? If you're still with us or you've come back out of your pond,
Yeah.
just let us know how you're feeling. If you got anything, or maybe share your intention if you want to share it out to the world. We'd love to hear it, because an intention spoken is like
Yeah, we can all hold space and share
yeah.
in that. I love it.
So that's pretty cool. So hopefully that'll help you get more connected. It's to me, it was very interesting that you and Bex share that one little gift of being able, well, you had it anyways, of being able to feel earthquakes. Sorry, I got to get back. Earthquakes before they actually happen, have like a sensation of that. Okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I wish it was something that I still could do at this point in time, I think. Yeah, I mean, what you're referring to is when I sort of announced to I think it was Ann Jersh having a conversation with her. It's sort of kind of forgot about, in fact, until you brought it up, and I go, "Oh, you must have listened to the new thing." You're like, "No, no, no, I listened to the old one, like back in the day." So, after experiencing an earthquake with my wife several years ago, I developed this sort of sensation around earthquakes happening in other parts of the world, where seemingly I would experience an earthquake-like phenomenon in my physical space and be like, "Whoa, that was pretty weird." And then, needless to say, there would be an alert, there would be something on social media, there would be news that came out that some sort of substantial earthquake would be happening in other parts of the world. Usually it wasn't right away. Usually it was within like a couple hour delay, seemingly.
Still.
but for whatever reason, like it seemed tuned in. And then, you know, I lost that ability after a certain amount of time. And I think part of that was that it was just too much it felt too much at that time for me to hold on to. You know, this was pre me kind of like diving in with 2 feet forward. And I think I made the conscious decision to just be like, you know what? I don't know what this is, but I don't know if I want to deal with this right now.
Right.
I just walked away from this, you know, potentially awesome, you know, superpower. But yeah, it's amazing to know that the other people like Bex like has, you know, shared that experience.
Yeah. So I think maybe just, you know, being in our vibe, being with us, you being with us, it lights us all up. So hopefully it'll serve you well in the future. This
Yeah,
will
thank you,
serve
of
you
course.
well. We just want to thank you again, and we hope you come back again, because we just like have a vibe. We just love your vibe. So yeah.
Well, thank you. And I have to, you know, I want to travel, you know, I have to travel for my show. I'll try to travel out and see you guys in person at some point
Oh
in
yeah.
time.
That'd be
You know,
awesome.
your individual locations.
Yeah.
And
In Canada.
you go see, of course, the maple syrup being made
Yeah,
over
yeah.
by you and
Yeah.
all that fun
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. We're gonna go. Yeah, sugar shacks all around. Yeah, it's great. Great time of the year to come visit.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and our dark skies too. Well, I'm lucky to have dark skies where I live, so it's perfect.
Yeah,
So-
nasty city, I tell you.
I know.
Bex has one more surprise question for you, which we didn't.
We didn't warn
Prepare
you.
you.
We didn't warn you
tell
about this one either. Yeah, we were just so happy to see you again. We forgot a few things.
Get ready
But,
for this one.
Are you ready for this one? Okay, go ahead, Bex.
All right, so this is a question we've been asking all of our guests this new season. It's kind of to give our audience a more intimate view into our guests. So the question is kind of a big one. If you had to choose a song to be the theme song of your life, what would it be?
Ooh.
Ooh.
Can I look at my Spotify real quick?
Yes.
Sure.
Just to make that decision? Because it's between like 2 songs.
Oh, that's so cool.
Okay, there's number 1, there's number 2. I have to say Dreams by Fleetwood Mac.
Oh,
Oh.
wow.
Awesome. Good choice.
Yeah, that's my that's like my I have this idea in my head. Maybe you can back it up with actual you know, actual expertise in this area, but I have this feeling that when I go and do Euphomet, that before coming home, I have a bit of a ritual, and it's my idea of like if I do this ritual, and I naturally kind of just enjoy doing this ritual. It helps me kind of like clean my slate and just
Oh,
like
yeah.
enter back home. And I always listen to that song, like every single time, every single trip. I listen at the end. I'm done. I'm in the hotel room, or I'm about to get on the plane, or whatever else it is. I'll listen to that song. I'll have a moment or two, and then I'll feel I can go back to normal life. And so,
That's cool.
yeah, that would be it.
It's like you're clearing sage.
Yeah.
song.
It's like
Yeah.
a purification. Yeah. That's very
excellent.
cool.
Very cool.
It's also like a disconnect from what you're, I mean, you know, an energetic disconnect. So you're kind of pulling the plug on your experience so you can go back to being everyday Jim, you know? So I
Yeah.
like
Yeah, you know, and just to follow up on that, you know, my friend John Tenney, who's a paranormal investigator, you know, he's been doing it a lot longer than a lot of us in my circle, and you know, we'll often go to him, you know, with questions about like, hey, you know, you experienced this, and he's always you can choose kind of like turn it off. You can choose when to say no.
Right.
And sometimes in this field, it's important to express that power. And so in that way, yeah, you're right. I guess like it's my way of saying like, okay, I'm done with this for right now. I'll come back to you later. But right now, just I gotta go home. Gotta do chores. Can't play in the streets anymore.
Exactly. Even in our practice, like when you do Reiki, the last thing you wash your hands. And you wash your hands not just because it's physically, but you wash your hands to symbolically disconnect the energy from that person. So you're disconnecting your energy from their energy. And if you don't, it's weird.
it
So
is.
you have to go.
It is.
You go, oh, God, I gotta go wash my hands, even if it's just online. So
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
thank you,
I
Stevie
think it's
Nicks.
very cool. I do
Just-
promote where I
yes,
use
Stephen
selenite,
Nicks.
you know, and after seeing a client or meeting with a client, I'll take
Yeah,
my
in
selenite
between.
and I'll move it across my body and I'll say, I release you with love. So I visualize those cords, you know, being disconnected so that they can have their energy flow back and I have mine, and, you know, it's respect. So it's a very, very important part of the experience.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question.
Spiritual hygiene.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. So, Bex, you have our winner.
I do. I have our winner. But first, I wanted to say for all of you who enjoyed listening to Storytime with Jim, check out Euphomet because you get to hear more and more, and he tells amazing stories. His guests are amazing, and it, you know, with all this time we have now, why not, right? Something to binge listen to while you're doing things around the house. Spring cleaning is happening right now, of course, because we have all this time. So, you know, it gives you that entertainment while you're doing your spring cleaning, or, you know, just being able to, I guess, have an outlet while we're going through this, you know, really have something that you can kind of just enjoy and not have to think too much. Because I feel like we're getting really lost in our minds lately trying to figure this out. So it gives you that outlet. And I think that's a really awesome thing to have right now. So it's a really, really cool asset.
And
So,
and they're all the links are there and his Patreon too, so you can listen to his archive as well. So excellent.
Absolutely. All right. Well, the winner who shared out the most last week and won a reading with Rhonda, a Healing Through Your Akashic Records session with Rhonda, is Marla Torres. So
Yay,
congratulations, Marla, who's one of our longtime viewers. She's very devoted. We love her so much. And whoever shares out the most this week will win a reading with me. So we'll announce the winner at the end of next week's show. So make sure you share this out. And this has been a super fun episode. So thank you, Jim. It's been awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Can't wait to come back on, you guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll see you next week. Take care,
Namaste.
everyone.
We love you
Bye-bye.
all.
Wash your hands. Stay safe socially. Bye.